they have a hand mic, I'm sorry to get behind this big podium and stuff like that. It kind of feels like there's a separation there. But I just want to say thank you all for being here today. I think that your presence in the Capitol is absolutely critical. I think it sends that message. It gives you the opportunity to find out. I mean, you're basically boots on the ground for the young Republicans, and you can come here and college Republicans, of course, both groups I think are together, right? And so today they are. So can y'all hear me all right? So the bottom line is, I mean, you being here in the Capitol since, number one, it sends a very strong message that your generation cares. I was young at one point. I'm still young. It's relative, right? When I was 29, I became a district chairman in Alaska, a civil basketball crisis, and usually people hear that and they think, oh, well, so you know Sarah Palin? No, I don't actually know Sarah Palin because I left in 1990 to go get my MBA at the Wharton Business School, and she got elected to city council in 91. So for those of you who don't know, I'm an Aggie. Woo! Okay, I had to cue that up, you know, it's a little bit delayed, but anyway. Can we go ahead and proceed to the Aggie War Hymn? Maybe not a good idea. All right, so again, thank you for coming. Thank you even more so for your involvement and your desire to help the Republican Party go forward and be successful. Because I think that well, I'll tell you what I spoke twice in Houston. Usually what I do, and I'll do that here just for the sake of, for fun, I guess. So how many people in this room, you want to get a flavor for what I'm saying around the state, how many people in this room are under the age of 40? Right. Because that's usually what I ask. In some cases, I was at a meeting and there was 2 people out of about 100, and then the second meeting in Houston was actually several more. And so what I'm telling, the message that I'm conveying to Republican women groups, the Republican clubs, is to say, let me talk about the importance of the next generation. Now, you heard from Amy Clark, right? Isn't she remarkable? She's under the age of 40, well, for a little bit longer, but she's a pretty amazing gal. And whenever I was elected chairman, she came to me and said, well, Mr. Chairman, what can I do to help you? And so I said, well, you come alongside. Staff will give you anything. They'll keep you fully informed. You'll be part of staff meetings. You'll be, as much as you're willing to handle, as much as you can carry, I'm going to delegate that responsibility to you. And I'm telling you, she is a superstar. You've probably heard her talk about the Platform Process Review Committee. Did she give an update about all that and where we're going? So in case people are wondering, God, does a new chairman even understand the platform's a little bit long? Hey, I was the platform chairman, but y'all probably read it twice. It's too long, probably. So we'll let the SREC sort out. We'll hear from the grassroots. And then we'll figure out what to do next in terms of not what the content is. She probably drove that home, I would hope, that the SREC will help determine the structure of the platform, but not focus on the content, because it's very, very important that the grassroots decide what the content what that platform is. I feel very strongly about that. But let me talk about just a couple of things that I'm saying around the state, and I want to say to you. As I begin to speak, I talk about as your new state Republican chairman. And by the way, I followed an incredibly remarkable man, Steve Ministeri, a man of great vision. When he, as you may or may not know, the party was somewhat struggling pretty dramatically, actually. He had $850,000 of debt whenever he became chairman. He paid off the debt, and when he walked out the door, he left $1 million in the bank. Pretty remarkable accomplishment, not to mention the fact that I had a reporter ask me one day, so Steve's greatest accomplishment was that he paid off the debt. I said, no, that wasn't his greatest accomplishment. That was a pretty phenomenal accomplishment. But Steve's greatest accomplishment, in my opinion, was he unified the party. He brought a very fractured SREC together as a team. He did that by transparency, total transparency, and also by the fact that he allowed people to participate and to have their voice. And that pretty much becomes a great blueprint for unity, which I'll talk about in just a second. Let me go back to engagement. We used to call what we now call next generation engagement. It used to be called youth outreach. Y'all remember that? Probably heard about that. Well, you know, for you guys, gals, when I usually say guys, and I mean that unisex is a comment, gals and guys. But I would think probably most of y'all in this room might sit back and think, why does the party call it youth outreach? I mean, you know, we're adults, right? So we changed it. Amy's the one that actually recommended that. She said, why don't we call it the next generation engagement? And that's it. That's what we're doing. What I'm telling these groups around the state is, why do I ask them to ask people to raise their hand if they're under the age of 40? Because I want them, first of all, to recognize that there are not enough young people involved in this party. By far, we are way low on that. But the second thing is, what I've told the members of the individuals who are attending these forums and in meetings, I said, all of you are the future of our party. You are the people that are going to give me the opportunity to retire someday, and you are the ones that will protect our legacy. Because the older generation, we've poured our lives into this, we've invested our time, our treasure, and which is all important, but for us to see that to continue on to our children and our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, it won't be up to us anymore. It will be up to you. And I'm probably saying something, you're like, isn't that obvious? Well, it's obvious to all of you, but it's maybe not so obvious to people that are older than you. And sometimes that message has to be reinforced. And that's what I've done as a chairman, is to make sure people understand that they should welcome the next generation into our party, but not just to say, hey, I'm glad you're here, but to look at you kind of like they would their children or their grandchildren, depending on their age, and to bring you alongside and to say, I'm going to teach you everything I know. So the lessons I've learned and the struggles I've found and things that worked, things that didn't work, why would you have to go through and learn those yourself, but instead maybe have somebody mentor you? And I'm a big believer in mentoring. If you're interested in something like that, I would encourage you to be bold enough to reach out to somebody that you respect and admire and say, hey, would you mentor me in the area of politics or the area of speaking or whatever? And take that upon yourself and see that you don't get a result that would help you propel you to the next level. The other part of engagement, minority engagement, I won't spend a lot of time on that. I will tell you that when I got behind the wheel, so to speak, of the party, I didn't just put my foot on the gas in this area, I put the pedal to the metal. We are doing everything in our power to pursue minority engagement. It's absolutely critical to the future of the party. And why is that? Well, in 2004, Texas became a majority minority state. Does that make sense, what that means? So in other words, the Caucasian community was in the majority. We're no longer, the Caucasian group is no longer in the majority. Minorities collectively are larger as of 2004 than the Caucasian. But that in itself is an important consideration. The second part of this is, in 2019, that happens in the electorate. Let me tell you what I believe. I believe very strongly with respect to when it comes to basic politics. Conservative belief is not something that is related to somebody's skin color. It's what's in their heart. Okay, we are Republicans. We're not going to become less conservative in an attempt to bring more people in. But what we need to do is we need to communicate, do a better job of communicating our message to say we are conservatives. What I believe, and I believe to be accurate and true, is that the minority communities are every bit as conservative as the Caucasian community. Okay, so why would some large numbers of them identify as being Democrat? It's probably because of messaging. In fact, there's a messaging problem throughout the state of Texas, because if you walk up to people, even at the Capitol, or visitors that come here, or where your hometown is, and you ask them, hey, what's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat? Most people are going to say there's no difference. Well, we're the conservative party. At least 40% of the population is conservative, and only 20% is liberal. So it seems to me that we haven't done as good of a job communicating our message of what we believe. So a center part of what we're going to do is we're taking our message in the minority communities, not in October of an election year to say, hey, please vote for us, vote for the Republican candidate. What we're doing is we're going to do it through relationship. Because that's the only way you ever have a lasting impact in anything, is to have a relationship with the people you're trying to reach out to. And we're going to take that message, we're going to go door to door to the probably not to every door, because some people aren't even registered to vote, but because we have limited resources. So we're going to take the resources we have. Ultimately, we plan on going door to door to the minority communities and to the ones that are soft Ds, and then ultimately to the hard Ds perhaps, and take our message with volunteers and say, this is what we believe. We're going to do a party platform comparison. Did you ever see those push cards that were kind of going around a couple of years ago?
Yeah.
All right, well, that's going to kick off in a major way. And it's going to be strategic on how we go into these different communities, and we're going to begin to reach out to those communities to take our message to them. So that's the engagement. You know, again, next generation, how important all of you are. You are the future of the party. You are my ticket to retirement. So, and I want to go fly fishing in New Mexico, and I don't want to be the state chairman forever. Obviously, I'm not going to be, because there's limitations on terms, and I'm a big believer in term limits for state chairmen, so that gives us a reason to step out of the job. But the second thing is, obviously, minority engagement. But let me touch on the third item, which is very, very important for our party right now, and that's unity. We have got to unify as a party, or we will be decimated. You know, the Bible says that I'm a man of faith, walked with the Lord for 40 years, so my faith is what shaped my conservative beliefs. And I'll tell you that the Bible says that how can two walk together unless they agree? They don't have to agree on everything. They have to agree. And I assume everybody in this room is either in a relationship or has been in a relationship. Does that sound fair? How many of you began that by talking about the things that you disagree on? Does that make sense? Nobody does that, right? How do you have a relationship with somebody if you sit down, you meet somebody you find attractive, and you start talking, and you talk, oh, let's talk about all things we disagree on. No, you're talking about the things you agree on, right? Then you very delicately approach the subjects that you don't agree on. Republicans may be the only group that I know of that have a tendency, when they get together, to want to talk about what they disagree on. Why do we do that? That doesn't help us as a party. All it does is divide us. So when you get ready to walk into a room, and let's say that it's a Republican meeting, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, there's a room full of strangers here, you might think differently and say, this is a room of friends that I haven't met yet. I have a lot in common with the people in that room. How do you know that? You don't even know these people, maybe, and so how do you know that's the case? Because it's a Republican meeting. If it's a Republican meeting, you have a lot in common if you're a Republican. That's true across the state. It's true across the country. So if we look to become united, then what happens is we begin to pull together as a team. You know, I had a great experience in my life. How many people in this room actually attended the 2010 convention? Anybody? All right. You may remember this situation when I stood up on the podium and I threw my support as a candidate. Steve and I ran against each other. That's how we became friends on the campaign trail. And we ran against each other, against the incumbent. And so I ultimately threw my support to Steve. But there's something very important about that speech that occurred at the very beginning. Do y'all remember? My campaign had put out this push card. And in the push card, we had a column on the left, and it talked about different issues, and we had check marks. And on the issue of pro-life, we had a question mark for Steve. And I took this attitude. It was somewhat of a cocky attitude, to be honest with you. Well, you know, we really don't know. He says he's pro-life, but how pro-life really is, we don't really know. And so we put this out to 10,000 people. And Steve comes up to me and says, "Tom, I thought we were friends." "Well, we are friends, Steve." "Well, why didn't you put this out? Why didn't you come talk to me first? Why didn't you ask me what I believed about that?" I said, "Well, you know," and then I got this, you know, sometimes like we do as people, we kind of leave that, "Well, you know, I have a right to ask you, you know, I didn't really know what you thought." That was baloney. You know, would you all say that? What kind of attitude was that I had? And so he made this comment to me. He says, "Tom, when I was on the SREC back in the 70s, we had a pro-choice platform. And I was one of the key guys that worked to change that platform to make it pro-life." That's huge. And here I am telling 10,000 people, putting a question mark to his commitment to that issue. Here's what I learned from my walk with the Lord. There's a tendency, maybe it's just in politics or maybe it's just with people, but there's a tendency that when somebody begins to tell somebody else about another person, so to speak, so they get some bad information about Joe, and they go tell Mary and Cindy and John and David, and they go tell this and repeat all this to everybody, right? And so in the process of repeating it, they've told these people that, and then they ultimately find out that that's not true at all. But you know what they do? They don't go to those four people. They go back to the person it was about and say, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I had some bad information and I know it's not true today." Did you see the problem with that? Because now you have 4 or 5 people that are believing a lie. I'll tell you something to think about as you continue mature in your political experiences, believing a lie doesn't make it true. And now that is hanging out there, and these 4 or 5 people have this bad opinion of this person that I told, or a person told to somebody else. I call that cleaning up. And that's one of the things I have to do as a man of faith, a man of integrity, is when I do something like that, I need to go back and clean up the mess I made. So what happened at the convention? I have a push card. People are like wondering what all that was about. Maybe I'll tell you the inside baseball story. I had a push card that was published that was inaccurate, that had called into question one of my opponent's positions on a very, very important issue at that convention. So guess what I got to do? Apologize to 10,000 people, all at the same time. That's what was going on. That's what that was about. You know what? It wasn't about me being the chairman of the Republican Party. It's about our party. It's about the future of our nation. I guess you all are quite familiar with what's going to happen. I believe it's November 1st in 2016, right? The first Tuesday, we're going to elect a new president. Right. Well, you were older, I tell you this. I'll tell you the same thing because you may not have had this said to you before, but I've been doing this for 30 years, and we've been saying it for 30 years at least. This next election is the most important in your lifetime. All right? Well, this one really is. What's the big deal? All right? I believe you can judge a tree by its fruit. Right? You walk up, it's got apples. What kind of tree is it? It's an apple tree. So what is the fruit of Hillary's life? Total deception, lack of transparency, murder. I didn't say murder. Right. But the problem is what? You begin to see these character traits. What kind of president do you think Hillary Clinton would make? Pretty horrible. Yeah, a horrible one that would suppress investigative processes. There's no transparency. She basically takes a huge number of 30,000 emails, right, that dealt with her job as Secretary of State. And what does she do? They're on a hard drive at her house. They basically trash the hard drive so it can never be recovered. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? But there's something even maybe just as significant as that, not just to mention the character. The next president will most likely appoint 2 Supreme Court justices. Most of the decisions that are made by this Supreme Court are 5-4. You've got 4 conservatives, you've got 4 liberals, and you have Kennedy. He's the swing vote. That's why it goes 5-4, 5-4. This is one of the biggest, certainly one of the biggest opportunities in my lifetime, and maybe for yours also, of course, since I'm older than you, to actually have a lasting impact that will change the dynamics of our nation for generations. Because the next president has got to be a conservative Republican. To make those appointments, to get people on that court. And if that person is a conservative Republican, those are conservative appointments. You've got 4 conservatives. You add 2 more, it's 6. It'll be a 6-3 vote. You understand what I'm saying? It is worth every ounce of energy and drive that you can muster to bring about that change and to make sure Hillary is not the next president of the United States. I tell you, I can't emphasize it strongly. So, I'll tell you the same thing I told these other girls. Pack your bags. Because in the fall of 2016, as your chairman, my goal is to field 10,000 strike force volunteers from Texas. And we will send them out all over this country to all the battleground states, because a lot of those states do not have particularly strong, they certainly don't have strong grassroots organizations, but the party structure is somewhat weak. We need volunteers. Well, maybe 2 or 3 people show up when they need 200. Guess what? Texas will be there. We're going to stand in the breach. And so, since maybe you may or may not be married, but when I tell the larger groups, I said, so if you are married, or your significant other says, what are you doing on vacation? We're going to take a political vacation this year. That's what you say in January. Not a vacation from politics, but a vacation for politics. And to go in this area, I tell you this, my wife and I love we love these strike forces. We did one in October, I guess, of 14, whenever Colonel Way, he was running for the U.S. Senate. That was a long shot. He was running for the New Mexico Senate race. And there was a potential opportunity to win that race. And so my wife and I were volunteers for about 4 days. We went to Albuquerque, and you have to pay for your own transportation. You got to pay, most likely pay for your own, you pay for your own meals. You have to pay for your hotel. Oh my gosh, but is it fun. And when we were in that office, that campaign said, man, we love people from Texas. Because when you come to our campaign headquarters, you come to work. Because we didn't know anything else. We came there, bam, what do you need us to do? All right, put labels on all these mail-outs. Bam, 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 bam. Went through about 5,000 like in 45 minutes. You know, we need you to walk neighborhoods. Fine, give us the walk list, give us the material, knock, knock, we went around there. And we didn't really, that's just normal, right? Normal for Texas, normal for Texas Republicans. But what we found out later is the campaign told our coordinator, Rhonda Lacey, who was from Midland, and they said, we just love you guys, because one of our challenges when volunteers come to help us in New Mexico, they just like sit around and talk. You guys, when you come, you just come to work. Well, you want to talk about moving the needle? Impact? Texas to have the impact? If we can field 10,000 volunteers around this country, we will change the face of politics. And maybe the turning point that changes the outcome of the presidential election, which will have an impact for generations. All right, so again, unity. Unity is so critically important. Folks, I have literally known people. You get to talking to them, and a guy might be in his 80s, and you talk to him and say, so, do you have any siblings? And they said, oh yeah, I got a brother, I haven't talked to him for 60 years. 60 years? Why? Well, you know, 60 years ago, he was pretty rude to me. We were at a family gathering, he was rude to me, and I never talked to him again. Can you imagine that? That happens all, you may know people like that. Republicans do that to each other. We have got to lay down these offenses and say, you know what? A lot of them are just misunderstandings. Someone might be busy, might have something on their mind. You walk by, they don't greet you, not because they don't like you, but maybe as they walk by, that you've got something on your mind, or you're trying to get to an appointment, and you just don't see them. It's not that you don't like them, but people get offended. Well, who do they think they are? You're young. Don't live your life that way. You know, focus on that. I started doing that years ago. I will not pick up offenses. I'm not carrying other people's offenses. I am letting this stuff go because all it does is shape me in a way I don't want to go. And I want to be part of the team. And I want to get along with people. I want to have a positive impact, not a negative impact. So, you know what? When it comes to political influence, I'll tell you this. I'm probably out of time. I think Q&A, right, Richard? The thing I've learned, people that are elected to office do not respond well to threats. Would you respond well to a threat? All right. And so I had a guy ask me in Waco. I was speaking in Waco several. I got elected the chairman 6 weeks ago Saturday. I've never worked this hard in my life. I'm not complaining. I signed up for it. I knew what I was getting into, but oh my gosh. I don't have any staff here. I will tell you that Steve, for 5 years that I was his treasurer, he always talked about his staff, and I'm like, yeah, right. Well, how good can the staff be? You have no idea how amazing the RPT staff is until you are the state chairman. They're phenomenal. So, anyway, what I want to tell you is, I lost my train of thought. Must be an actor, right?
There you go.
I was in Waco. Thank you. So I was listening. It was really a test. I want to see who was listening. She was the one that was listening. And some guy stands up, there's Q&A, he says, I want to know, Chairman, when are you going to make these elected officials follow the platform? Right? Now, the platform's important. How many people in this room have actually read the platform? How many people in this room think, do you know how many pages it is?
40.
Well, it's 40. Are you counting the cover page?
Amy said 42.
She did? Oh. Okay. Well,
I thought it was 34.
well, I'll tell you what it was in 2010. It was 33. It was 22. I was the chairman in 12. It was 22. Then it went to 40. How many planks are there? 295. Can you imagine? He asked me, when are you going to make the legislature follow the platform? Let me tell you what I've learned. 30 years of this. People don't respond well to threats, and you can't use the platform as a club. Which of those planks are important?
The ones you agree with.
Ones you agree with, that's a great answer. You know, a long time ago I used to use the word rhino. I don't use that word ever anymore. You know why? I knew there was a problem, because I believe I'm probably the most conservative person I know of. And a guy called me a rhino. And I said, how can that be? You know why? Because I didn't agree 100% with everything he believed. Say, oh, you're just a rhino. That's hogwash. There's a, you know, that is a divisive term. It doesn't do anything to help us. All it does is basically split us apart. So I quit using it. I don't think it's accurate. I think it's baloney. Hang on a second, I'll do it good in a minute. But the point is, you can't use it as a club. And if somebody says, well, what part of the platform is really important? They say, all of the platform is important. I'm going to tell you what I've learned. If everything's important, then nothing's important. If somebody says that, I don't know, there's one in there about raw milk, which I'm not bragging on raw milk. Do you think that's as important as the pro-life amendment, or the pro-life plank in the platform?
Yes.
The raw milk is?
Yes, that was his plank.
Is that your plank?
I certainly pushed it.
Oh, okay. All right, so whoever said the planks are the most important ones that you like, you know, okay, there you go. Anyway, do y'all understand what I'm trying to get at? The platform's important. It needs to make a statement of our beliefs. I totally buy into that. I agree with it 100%. But it can't be a club. My involvement with elected officials, and I've been very fortunate to be able to influence some, is the fact that every time you want to have some influence, you do it with relationship. You need to find a way to build the relationship. Usually that entails arm strength. What do I mean by that? Carrying water. If you carry water for somebody who's elected, you build a relationship with them, you've earned the right to speak to them. Not to say that that they shouldn't listen to you. Of course they should listen to you. But I tell this example of a county judge, not anybody in particular, just a county judge. He's going to make a decision. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, we don't want this decision. And there's 200 people out there in front of the judge's courtroom, right? They're carrying signs, and the judge is going to say this, most likely. You know what? I think it's great they're out there. I think they're exercising their constitutional right. They're out walking around. I think it's fantastic. But it didn't influence that judge. But if somebody that knows that judge and has a relationship with them and says, hey, can I talk with you about something? Let me tell you why I think this is a bad idea. The probability is quite high that that judge will change his or her mind because of that conversation of somebody who has a relationship with them. Throwing rocks at people, in my opinion, it never, ever works. All it does is make it worse. It makes them angrier, and they sit back and they put their arms, they cross their arms and say, no way. So you're early in your political careers, your involvement, think about that. Think about building a relationship with people and not just standing. I mean, here's what I'll tell you that I'm getting on my soapbox, I'm sorry. But I've seen this happen over and over again. It's happened to me. I had people who have attacked me for things that I was doing, and all they did was criticize what I was doing. They never, I'll just tell you, we want the best idea possible. We are looking for the best solution we can find. They don't step up and say, hey, can I offer another idea, a better idea? If they said that, I would embrace them. I'd probably give them a hug and say, great, we want a better idea. What they want to do is stand on the side and throw rocks at us, or the people in authority and leadership, and they throw rocks and they condemn and condemn and condemn, but they never offer a solution. They just want to criticize whatever the solution that you've come up with. Some of you may have experienced that. How does that help? It's divisive. All it does is tear the party apart. All it does is make things worse. And it's so demoralizing probably to the people who have worked so hard to get out there and get something done, only to have people stand there and criticize them, and then they'll say, you know what? That person never even came to talk to me so I could explain why I'm there and what I'm thinking and why I'm making the decision on them. I've never been given a chance to explain myself. All they do is throw bombs at me. Does that make sense? Does it? I don't know. I'm kind of letting my hair down here and being very open and frank with y'all. Well, I don't have a lot of hair, but let's get anyway, I'm just kind of, you know, I've been delighted to have people come talk to me when I was 29 and a county district chairman in Alaska, but I can't tell you enough, I can't emphasize enough how important all of you in this room are. And I hope that you will be energized. We need your energy, we need your connection, we need you to help us on social media. There's a lot of people that are downers out there, they're criticizing, they're throwing rocks all the time. Would y'all maybe engage in that and push back and say, I believe in our party, I believe in the future of Texas, I believe that the Republican Party of Texas will have a positive impact on the future of our state. And we're open. Man, we need all of you. We need your energy. We need your ideas. We need your fresh approach. And we need your enthusiasm. So with that, let me take Q&A. I think from the very back, Jason had a question.
So last, you talked a lot about unity, and I appreciate your stance on reform, on changing the platform, and a lot of different things. And honestly, just your openness. If any of you guys have not reached out to Tom, he's been very open. Pretty much had an open door policy to talk on different issues. So I truly